So thank you very much I'm really happy to start this new series of seminar on lab schools. It's actually not the first year we have a seminar called Education, Innovation and Society. It's even the 7th year. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen? So how can I make it visible? Select.
Yes, we see this.
You see? Oh, my colleagues see it.
We see the slides.
Yeah, can you see the slides? Yeah, not the slides, I mean. David, you can't see the slides? I'll try to put it on full screen. In that case, I don't see you at all anymore, but is it better?
It doesn't change anything.
Who else is... What about the other people online? Do you see the slides or not? Apparently other people see it, David, so there must be something on your setting, maybe that prevent you from seeing it. Well, I'm going to change slide and see if it makes a difference. So I was telling you that, yeah? Oh, I can hear some noise, but it seems to be a dog, so I guess it's...
That's my dog.
Oh, it's your dog, fine.
Enjoying the presentation.
And he's interested in lab schools, right?
Oh, a few better years. He's studying for his doctorate.
I see. Well, we need also dog lab schools, I guess. So as you can see, this seminar started in 2016, which is the year before Paris Lab School opened, where we already started working on the project, talking to a lot of people. And the 2 first years were with a group of researchers from the École nationale supérieure who were working mostly on cognitive sciences. And we really tried very broadly to work on the question of innovation in education. The second year, we also reflected the question of evidence-based, because in some cases it is a problem to do research in education using only experimental methods, and there are a lot of people who we'll see about that today. A lot of people who use different kind of methods. So we had about 12 lectures or presentations about that, and gradually we had questions arising either in the lab schools or in our research settings, and time we decided to have a theme each year on different subjects. And last year we spent the whole year, maybe some of you are in the classroom assessment scoring system project, we spent the whole year working on teacher-pupil relationship and inviting different people using the classroom assessment scoring system tool. So it's really at the same time that's what our school is, the School for Advanced Studies in Social Sciences, says we learn doing research by doing research. So we have presentations which sometimes are things that are going on at the moment, but it's not always full research presentations and not, finished research. In a few minutes, I'll take my notes because my English is, in France, we're not the strongest country to learn foreign languages. So I don't feel always completely confident in speaking English. So I have a few notes. It will be easier. Just a few more notes on the context. Lab School Paris is not directly linked with the School for Advanced Studies in Social Sciences. But the situation is that I'm the founder and I'm also a researcher here, and we had a project which I'm going to tell you about later, which involves both the École des hautes études, the School for Advanced Studies in Social Sciences, and the lab school. And just before starting, maybe I'm going to give the floor to Stéphanie so she can introduce herself. Mm-hmm.
We are sharing the same sound to avoid some bad effects. So I'm Stéphanie Dubal. I'm a PhD in cognitive science, and I do scientific research in cognitive science focused on how emotion processes impact both perception and cognition, especially attentional processes. And I've been working with Pascale for a few years now, trying to make those seminars interdisciplinary and including some perspectives from cognitive science and sometimes affective neuroscience.
And our colleague Marlène Martin will join us in a few minutes. She said she had some delay, so she will introduce herself later on at some point. I'm not going to talk a lot about Lab School Paris today because I hope we'll do a session with all the partners of Lab Schools Europe project in a few months. But just to give you a few words of context, my idea was really to try to build a lab school which could be related to a university or a university department. I went to see all the people, like all the official people I could see at the ministry, even at the Élysée, the highest place, closest place to the French president in 2015. And everybody said it would be very interesting to have a public lab school connected with the national system of education, but nothing happened for many reasons, but mostly institutional challenges. So in the end, we started a private school, and it's an NGO association, so it's a non-profit organization. We're really trying to welcome different kind of children, both socially, but also from a cognitive point of view. We have very diverse students, including students with special needs. We have students from social and cultural diverse backgrounds. So the idea is to try to be as close as possible to a normal school, if I can say, or at least to a school that is open to all, and not to make a kind of elite school which is only open to people with very high social and economical status, or students who are very strong academically. So we are a normal school, and we face the same problems as any teacher can face in their environment. And I also just want to add that since it's a private school, of course, we need to pay the teachers the place where we teach, the rent. And so it is not free, but we have different fees depending on the social and economical status of the families. So we even have a few students who don't pay, because this is part of the diversity that we really want to have. So that's everything I want to tell you about Lab School Paris, because mostly what I'm going to talk about today, it's a more general introduction. It's about what are lab schools and what kind of research we do in lab schools. And as most of you already know, I guess, a laboratory school is a place where we're really trying to bridge research and practice. I don't know how it is in your countries, but in France there is a very big gap. And what happens is that a lot of people, a lot of researchers do research which are not implemented in schools because teachers don't know about it. And teachers do fantastic things that researchers also don't know about because they're planning some protocols. They mostly do research, experimental research. And so it's really, we need people to bridge the gap between teachers and researchers. So when I started thinking about that, I discovered Dewey's lab school in Chicago, and that's all.
The sound is gone.
Yeah, sorry, I just realized, how long have I been speaking with being mute?
30 seconds, I guess.
Just a few seconds.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened. So what's the last thing you heard?
You were talking about the Paris Lab School, I think.
Okay, yeah, so, well, I'm not going to repeat all that. I hope it's not too, it hasn't been too long. But what I was saying in the end is that I'm not going to make a full presentation about Paris Lab School today, because there will be some other presentation, hopefully with all the partners from the Europe project. And what I want to do today is mostly to talk about lab schools in general, a little bit about John Dewey and his approach, and the project that we had together between 2019 and 2022, which was Lab Schools Europe. And I was starting with a kind of definition of lab school, and saying that a lab school is usually a school backed by a university department or teacher training organization. Sometimes we find other names. We sometimes find, in French, we say application schools, École d'application. We sometimes have attached schools. And this type of schools, according to researchers called Cassidy and Sanders, they have existed for a long time on university campuses, and their existence would be documented as early as the 17th century. They don't give any source. They talk about Europe as well as Japan being known as attached schools. And of course, after Dewey's creation of the lab school in Chicago, lab schools expanded during especially the first half of the 20th century. And they played a major role in the field of educational research. And then I think in the second half of the 20th century, mostly due to economical problems, a lot of lab schools closed. But now it seems that in the 21st century, there's a kind of renewal and sometimes different types of lab schools that we're going to talk about. The main point, I think, is in a lab school, and that's the difference with other schools and other training schools, is that research, teaching, and training, teachers' training, are really closely linked. And another researcher called Kuchiara, I think I'll send you the slides and I'll put all the references at the end of the she says that this link formed between education and research is possible to develop and test new approaches and modeling best practices. Today, in line with the Erasmus project, Lab Schools Europe, will also focus very much on the question of democracy. We'll see also that the word democracy itself is kind of problematic, but at least the concept of democracy and democratic education had a decisive role for John Dewey's school model. So a few words on the origin of lab schools. As you know all, I guess, the first lab school was created by John Dewey and his wife, Alice Chapin. And it was in the end of the 19th century. It didn't last very long. I put the reference of Durst 2010. There are a lot of information about the lab school, and I think I took this picture from her book. And I'm not going to go into detail about Chicago, but what I want to underline is the fact that when John Dewey launched his school project, he was already deeply engaged in educational issues before. He had taught before that for 2 years in what would be American high school. It was kind of college. And he also taught for 2 years in a primary school in Vermont. He taught at the University of Michigan. And he also had some experience in supporting the creation of another school, not a lab school, but the school was called Rand School in 1887. So about almost 10 years before starting the lab school in Chicago. Besides that, he was involved in all kinds of associations. I'm not going to give you all the names, like Illinois Society for Child Study, etc., etc. And when he founded the Chicago Lab School, he really wanted to apply and test his own theories. That was the idea behind creating a school where researchers could come and observe what's going on. And in a way, it could be compared in what we have nowadays as university hospitals. It's not only places where you experiment, but it's also places where you implement the best possible practices. So sometimes people think, I don't know in your countries, but in the beginning in France, people thought we were going to put tools on the children's heads, and like what? Electrodes, yeah, on the heads, and that we would have cameras all the time to observe everything. And it's really not the way it works, because the first thing is to train the teachers and to implement what we already know is helps children succeed at school. And then, of course, it can be a place for experiment, and we'll talk about that later on as well. As we will see later, the school was established as a place for students to learn through practical and what we called hands-on experience, rather than rote memorization. And in Dewey's time, I think it's probably less the case now, but in Dewey's time, there was a lot of just rote learning, and students couldn't make sense of what was being taught. And the end of the 19th century was a time with very big change in society, in technologies, and he felt it was not adjusted to the needs of children and society. So he really also wanted to focus on democratic education. And when the school opened, I like this story because it's very similar to our school when we opened. They started with 2 teachers and I think 16 or 19 students in January 1896. And gradually they had more and more students, up to about 100 students, and a larger staff, about 20 teachers, I think. But the experiment didn't last very long. In 1904, I think, there were some disagreement with the administration, financial disagreements as well, and with the head of the university. So this led Dewey to leave the school. The school still exists, but it's quite different, I think, from Dewey's idea in the beginning. And this is not an isolated fact, and we can underscore the challenge of sustaining this kind of experiment within traditional academic structure. And in a way, it's what happened to me when I tried to create a school within an institutional setting. It just didn't even happen. And today, we have had, in the framework of the LabSchoolsEurope project, 2 very different types of situations. There are some schools which were really developed following a political will of having this link between teachers and researchers. It's the case of Bielefeld Lab School, for instance. It seems to be the case in England as well. You'll tell us about it, David. Cambridge Lab School is also linked with Cambridge University, and in Austria, we had in Vienna colleagues who had a very big school designed following all the latest research to make an optimal space for learning, and that's a public school. Whereas in Czech Republic and in France, the 2 other schools from the Lab Schools project, we are non-profit organizations. We started the schools outside with no formal link with universities, despite the fact that we have a lot of links with researchers, and so we are still lab schools in the full sense of the term, I think. While preparing this project, I read the thesis of a French philosopher called Christophe Point, and maybe I'll contact him to have him talk to us, because he used John Dewey's various experiments to make what he called a proposition to reconstruct a university, for a democratic reconstruction of university. And it's very interesting because he studied in detail different projects in which John Dewey had been involved. The Laboratory School of Chicago is the best known of all these projects. But before that, there was the Black Mountain College that's in North Carolina. And it was founded in, oh, it's strange. It was founded in 1933, so it was later. I don't know why it's in the book it was put before. So sorry, no, I said something wrong. It's later than Laboratory School in Chicago. But he wrote in, John Dewey wrote in 1940 that the work and life of the college is the living example of democracy in action. The college exists on the very foundation of the democratic way of life. And he said also that this special university, through its attachment to experimentalism, can be seen as one of the achievements influenced by John Dewey pedagogical and political thinking long before the Lab School of Chicago. That's what I don't understand, because that's in 1940. And so I'll have to check that. Sorry, I didn't check the date. So my mistake, sorry. Anyhow, the Black Mountain College founder was called John Rice, and he wrote in his memoirs that John Dewey was for him the only man he knew who was completely fit to live in a democratic way. And so this shows how difficult it is, and I hope we can discuss your own experiences in the various presentation we'll have, because of course, on the paper, a lab school is a fantastic project, but its implementation in real life is full of challenge. It's not that easy, actually. So this Black Mountain College that you can see here was located in a beautiful place. It was a boarding school, a boarding university, a place of residence and study. And the students and the teachers had to do their own house work, cooking, repairing everything, the roof, repainting the building, even building new places, growing vegetable and fruits, cooking, etc., etc. And so that was probably a very special experience. And what Christophe Point, the author of this thesis, underlines, and which I think is really food for thought when we will discuss the challenge. He says, as an experiment in its emergence, the Black Mountain College was logically open to all the pitfalls of experimenting with community self-management. And he details internal conflicts, power struggles, resignations, and human upheaval, while the dark side of this university were the dark sides of this university adventure. As the end of any community experiment, it is difficult for individuals to assess the positive or negative results. And the founder, John Rice, was finally dismissed from the Black Mountain College in 1938. So here again, it lasts only 5 years, like Dewey's lab school. So that I think it's really interesting to think about the reasons why, and to try to learn from this experience if we want our schools to be sustainable and to last for a long time. Of course, other lab schools have had long lives, but in a way they're much more institutionalized. And if you look at what Chicago Lab School became, for instance, it's just a very expensive, innovative, progressive school close to the university, where all the university staff are very happy to put their kids, because it's a very good school, but it's not what John Dewey had in mind when he created this school. Okay. Do you have any questions so far? I'm talking a lot, or anything that you want to share already regarding your own experience in your countries?
I was just wondering, do you know why he was dismissed? You said Price. His name was Price.
Rice.
Rice. Sorry. Do you have any idea why?
No, I don't know the in details, but it seems that there has been a lot of disagreement. I know about the foundation of the school, of the university. He was teaching in another university. I think he was teaching Latin or humanities, and there were some complaints because his classes were too open, too innovative. It turned out sometimes it turned to be sexual educations or very different things. And so in his previous university, he had a lot of problems with his colleagues. And he left the previous university with 8 colleagues. And when they started Black Mountain College, there were, I think, only 8 teachers and 22 students, I think. So it was really very, very experimental. And so I don't know what kind of disagreements there were, but what I can share from the experience we had in Paris Lab School when we started, and it's coming later in my presentation, it's when you start a new project, you start with a lot of ideal values, ideas that have not been implemented yet. And there's usually a big gap between what you think, between the dream of the project and reality. And when we started lab school in Paris, after a few months, we had really difficulties with some families, some parents who thought that we were not, how do you say, not in French, it's bienveillant, so we would say not kind enough to the students, but some students had really very, very, very serious behavior problems, and they were even beating each other in the classroom, so it was really a problem. And some parents said that at that time, oh, okay, but then Pascale should go away because it's because of her that everything happens. Of course, when you're the founder, when something wrong happens, it's always your fault, so you're always the bad guy. So at that point, I had to be very self-assertive and say, well, I'm sorry, but I'm responsible for this school that I created also in front of my institution. And so I'm not going away, not handing you the keys. I'm not handing the keys over to you. So probably some discrepancies between the original ideas and what each teacher or student put in their, behind the words that they used for the project. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm just checking if Marlene has arrived. Not yet. So one of the ideas behind Dewey's idea, which Christophe Point is showing, is that behind Black Mountain College, he calls that experimentalism in higher education. Whereas for Chicago Lab School, he's talking about meliorative perfectionism, and this meliorative or ameliorative, maybe it's ameliorative and I made a mistake here. It's a core concept in Dewey's democratic theory. The third one, the method of inquiry, is very famous as well. So we can see that in each project he had some kind of sub-concepts of his theory that he's been experimenting with. And so the idea between meliorative perfectionism is that institutions should continuously improve through the engagement of their members. And that's also a nice challenge I would like to discuss at some point, because Dewey claims in a book called Public and Its Problem that democracy requires an active and constructive disposition. And everybody agrees when we want to make a collaborative project, we would like everybody to get involved and, if possible, get involved to the same level. But it's not what happens in real life either. So he says, Dewey says, it can only be cultivated through participation in institutions open to reform. So that's the first point. We need institutions to be open to reform. And he said that he managed to apply this principle to the Chicago Lab School, insisting that educational institutions should be spaces where both teachers and students learn to question, discuss, and improve existing practices. Which is, I think, a very nice principle, but I wonder, and I'd be happy to hear each of you in your presentation discuss that, when teachers are with the students in the class. In principle, they're open to contribute, to collaborate, to help with different projects, or to contribute to improve the structure. But where do they find the time? It's a bit the same problem with doing research. They're full-time teachers. It's fantastic but exhausting full-time work. They prepare classes, they correct, they spend time with the children, of course. And so it's not always that easy to find time to help improve the institution. So that's another topic for discussion. Marlène, you're between slides 6 and 7. That's good. I said you would introduce yourself when you arrive. So
I'm so sorry for being late.
Don't worry.
I'm in a lab school actually.
We can see that, the white wall.
Some issues. So really nice to meet you. I'm Marlène Martin. I'm working on at the end of my thesis in educational sciences, and I'm also the teaching director here at the Lab School Paris. And I have I'm lucky enough to work with Pascale and Stéphanie on these seminars and overall on the Lab School Paris project.
Don't hesitate to interrupt me or to complete. Trying to get to the next slide. Yeah. So one very important feature of Dewey's approach is, we always hear this word, hands-on learning. And my question was really, how does hands-on learning help children taking part in a democratic practice or democratic implementation in the school? I said in the beginning of this presentation that whatever the word democracy means, because everybody knows what democracy means until you ask them to give them a definition. I'm not going to go into details into the concept today, but when we did the Lab Schools Europe project, we had invited 2 Spanish teachers who worked on a project called Democratic Scholar, I think, and they had developed a theoretical framework which can be found on the website of Lab Schools Europe. So we can talk about it later if you want. But my main thing here was, often by hands-on learning, we mean that children should not only listen to a teacher, but should be participating. And you've seen in one of the first picture I had of Chicago Lab School, the students were doing, I think, washing things or doing printing. And so you have these hands-on things, but how does doing things with your hand makes you a participant in democratic education? So in the preface to the book that was produced in the framework of Lab Schools Europe, Elizabeth Morley, who is in Toronto Lab School, wrote, "John Dewey was deeply disenchanted with the way schools seemed to overlook what was known already in the late 19th century about child development. Dewey's beliefs were progressive and included the broad principle that schools are the foundation of society, that educators are charged with preparing their students for responsible citizenship, and that the curriculum should be hands-on, mind-on, hearts-on. So it's not only hands-on, but it's also minds-on and hearts-on. For Dewey, schools absolutely had to move away from the teacher transmitting knowledge by figuratively opening the top of a student's head and pouring in facts. And this is also very interesting because we have seen progressive approach stating things like, oh, we have to do research, project-based research, or inverted classes, and so on and so forth. But what research shows is also that in some cases, students learn better from having a teacher lecturing them. Not only doing that, but lectures should not be banned from the curriculum. So that's really one thing I want to point out. It's hands-on learning is very important, but the type of hands-on also has to be really carefully reflected. And I put you an example of one type of hands-on learning, which I found really interesting. Last year we were we organized a day in the School for Advanced Studies in Social Sciences. So it was a way for students to come and see what the university is. And there were students from Paris Lab School, but also students from a high school outside Paris, public high school. They came with their teachers. And they've been working on social and emotional learning, and we had prepared some cards with all kinds of factors that could be beneficial or affect negatively well-being and the development of social and emotional learning. And without giving them previous knowledge, we gave them all these cards, and they had also the possibility to add their own cards. There were blank cards as well. And by groups, they discussed and they prepared some kind of a scheme. You have one on the picture, but some of them were much more simple. Some of them made circular models. Some of them came up with models that were quite close to research models that we can have with, for instance, well-being as an outcome, and social and emotional learning being like a mediator with various factors before that. So, I mean, that's for me a kind of hands-on learning that can foster not only social and emotional learning, but also help them become confident citizens, help them know they have their word to say, because even in a university, some people came to listen to them. It was an open day. So that's the kind of questions I would like to talk about in the next sessions. Know how each of you cope with today's challenges, what kind of activities you use to foster democracy. And another question, which is often ignored, I think, but it's underlined by sociologists called Keys in a 22 paper 2 years ago. He says people with higher incomes, higher educational attainment and social capital engage more often than people who are less affluent in these respects. This contributes to democratic deficits, as the democratic promise of equality as citizen is breached by the inequality of actual participation. And this is for society, but this is also what happens in class. We often see that when we have, for instance, student council, students' debates, students who are already in families where they're encouraged to speak, where they get a lot of attention and stimulation, they speak very easily, whereas students who come from less stimulating environment sometimes become more and more shy. So the risk is that people who already participate will participate more and more, will feel rewarded by this participation and be in a virtuous circle. And our role as teachers, I think, is really to make sure that we foster everybody's skills and everybody's possibility to join the debate. And Keys further notes that research has further emphasized that education can have different effects and is not just a question of formal acquisition, which could theoretically be broadened, formal acquisition open to anyone. To the contrary, it not only provides knowledge, but it also distributes social positions, creating an uneven political playing field. So I think it's well stated. That's why I'm quoting this paper, and I'm really interested. In France, it's a real problem because we're the champion of increasing inequality through school system. Maybe other school systems are better in that respect. I don't know about England, but we'll have interventions from Finland as well. So that I think we'll have some other point of views. Any comments or questions so far? So another important thing, of course, is the teacher's role. According to Dewey, a teacher should be a co-constructor of an educational experience. By co-constructors, I think he means not only that the students should participate in the construction, but also that the teachers working as teams, are co-constructing the work in the school. And I think that's probably also one of the big specificity, big characteristic of lab schools, that usually the aim is also to give opportunities to teachers to collaborate. Marlène will maybe say a few words. It's not only to collaborate as teams, but sometimes even collaborate inside the classroom. So it's co-construction in all the senses of the term, including making suggestions in schools where questions like budget and other things can be discussed. They're also most welcome to make suggestions or to become involved into this type of subject. However, our experience so far is that, again, teachers are busy, are fully occupied with taking care of the kids, and we can not request them to take part in this if they don't want to. It's really something that has to be on a voluntary basis. Teachers are also, of course, role models for the children, and maybe that's what you're going to talk about, Marlène. We always say that teachers are role model, but if you have a teacher alone in the classroom and if the students never ever see adults collaborating, they don't have role models for that. So we also have to think about in which way we can be role models for the kids. And teachers, as I said before, should be encouraged to collaborate and take ownership of the school's administrative and curricular decisions, but with the limitations that I just mentioned. Marlène, do you want to say something about the role models or the collaboration more broadly?
Yeah, yes, because it's precisely one of the topic I studied in my thesis. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry for the noise. And it's also the idea, and that's why we implemented here at the lab school the co-teaching setting. It's the idea that the children are really all day long in position to observe how adults are discussing, exchanging point of view, and how they build a consensus on different subjects. And that's also a way of being a role model for cooperation, and not only when there's only one teacher in the classroom, when the teacher asks the students to work together or to share, they don't have directly the model of how to do that, because it's not enough just to say, okay, you're going to work with a binôme or in pair or in groups. And we see lots of effects of the personalities of the students when some of them are confident or shy or so on. So they can really observe how to cooperate as adults. And I think it's really important as educators to show. It's also linked to the explicit teaching and so on. So let's show you how we do that, so you can have ideas and observe and learn by also doing, but also by observing first, maybe.
Thank you. So in Dewey School, according to Mayhew and Edwards, the boundary between teaching responsibilities and executive duties were intentionally blurred. It was also our idea from the beginning that everybody could take part, everybody could contribute, and we've seen that it's not that easy. Sometimes it really led to difficulties, either people feeling that they had done too many things that were not in their official mission and feeling frustrated, or feeling that didn't get enough recognition, or other people just saying it takes too much time. So we are not intentionally blurring any boundaries in our case, and on the contrary, and following the demand of the staff, it's not our decision. These boundaries have to be more and more separate, and what they want and what we try to provide, what they want is to be in a safe place with the children, to focus on the children's need, and not to have to think about all the logistics and the administration and so on and so forth. So that's probably a big difference between the philosophy, the idea. it's not maybe not that democratic, although of course they're informed about the decisions and they have their words to say, but they don't have to spend the time, at least, to do all the things that were being done either in Black Mountain College or in Chicago Lab School. So I don't know if some of you want to share how it works in your school. Otherwise, you can keep it in mind for those of you who are going to participate in the seminar. It would be one of the questions we really would like to know about.
David has a question.
Yeah, please, David, go ahead.
Thank you for the discussion, Marlene and you, Pascale. Yeah, I'd just like to sort of reflect a little bit on the word democracy, because I was brought up very, very much on Dewey's philosophy, and as you get to know me, his focus on experiential learning has been very important to me, and the role of adventure in developing the self-concept of participants is fairly crucial. But that's a broader topic for later, perhaps. But I think that the thing that we want to focus on in our schools is about trying to create more autonomous learners. Learners who can think independently and also work collaboratively and have a range of learning skills and strategies at their disposal. So, for example, one of our schools will be talking at our session about how they develop the metacognitive capability of their students. And for me, that's about democracy, in its broader sense, giving students a degree of independence or autonomy rather than being governed by a dictatorial and didactic pedagogue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very important. And do you, is your experience that it works with the same success with all the students, or do you see students who, in a way, benefit even more of what you give because they're already autonomous, so they become even more autonomous?
Yeah. It's developmental, isn't it? And one of the principles that we hold on to very, very dearly in our schools is Vygotsky's notion of the zone of proximal development.
Yeah.
Does that translate? Okay.
Yeah.
But really, we've got to be designing learning experiences in the zones of proximal development of all of our students. So as teachers, we have to be good diagnosticians of the phase of learning of our student.
Yeah.
And interestingly, some of the research that we did, I've been a visiting professor at the University of Melbourne. Some of the research that we did at Melbourne suggests that you try to create tasks in the zones of proximal development for students, because it's the tasks which determine the students' sort of achievement. But you only need about 4, possibly 5 different tasks to accommodate, a range of, say, 30 students in the classroom. But it's getting the right kids to the right task that's important. And for me, that's democratic. You are emancipating students from the control of the teacher, and the school.
Yeah, I fully agree. What I meant was, one thing we're very careful about is not to increase inequality by fostering too much students who are already favored in a way. So we don't want to make them, to slow them down. It's not the idea. But I think it's we're really looking for a balance between explicit teaching and sometimes a little bit of lecturing, which in a way helps students who are further away from the school system. It gives them more, and some research shows that explicit teaching is really one way also of bridging inequalities.
Yeah, absolutely. The trouble is that explicit teaching is often regarded as being the only way to teach.
Yeah,
right?
of course. No, of
And
course.
it's it is one of the options that we have as teachers to create powerful learning experiences for our students.
Yeah.
And that's why we need, I feel, in our work, we try and expose our teachers to a range of teaching models, which are, important depending upon, as you say, the learning needs of the students and the particular curriculum content that you're focusing on. So it becomes, part of my task is to expand the teaching repertoires of our teachers, right?
Mhm.
And when you do that, you then expand the learning repertoires of our students, all right?
Yeah, it's a nice expression. Yeah.
No, I think we fully agree on that. We always present our pedagogy as hybrid. Comment on dit, Pascal? Hybrid?
Hybrid, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have to think about that in English. But the fact that we use explicit teaching in order to reduce the gap of knowledge between the students, and they all at least have a common basis of knowledge and a common core of knowledge, and then we can use other kind of teaching like discovery teaching, inquiry teaching, and so on. And but they have this common basis, which also belongs to all students in the classroom, creating a sense of community. And then, of course, the teachers are encouraged to once they got the knowledge, they can create, they can build, they can think, and they can use other models of teaching.
Yeah.
That's why we try to implement, and so that's why we fully agree on with what you said.
Yeah. D'accord.
Yeah, so that's a fascinating subject. I don't know if some other participants have something they want to share about that. Don't hesitate to take the floor later. Okay, so I said a few words about the institutional challenges and the solutions that have to be found, and educational experiments like the Chicago Laboratory School, as we already discussed, face a range of inherent challenges. I mean, it's part of the project. It's one of the things. It took me a long time to process the information because I always thought that it was my fault that I didn't make the project clear enough. I didn't find the right person, or I was myself not the right person. I did not manage to listen enough to the other people. So there was a lot of self-questioning, and it was a kind of relief at some point, and we discussed it with Marlène yesterday, who was mentioning the work of a sociologist. Maybe you'll say a few more words about that later. These inherent challenges, they are often due to conflict between innovative educational philosophies and the structural or institutional reality that we have to face. I didn't face that much because I was not able to open the lab school in an official institutional setting. However, I faced difficulties in my own institution because some people didn't understand what I was doing. We're here in a school with a lot of sociologists, and people said, "You're opening a private school." It was almost a crime in a way. And so I explained everything, why it didn't work. Yeah, exactly. I was like a horrible capitalist. And even when I explained that we had increasing fee depending on the parents' income, that I was doing things as volunteer, and we had a lot of volunteers, and Marlène was and is still doing a lot of volunteering in the school. So is Stephanie. So I mean, the school and the project couldn't exist without a lot of external help, and I don't think it's a capitalist project. Also because we are a space for learning for children who can't find a place in the public system, not because the public system is not good, but because teachers have too many children to take care about, and they can't offer this environment. So it was a bit difficult. So I can say that in a way I had some administrative or institutional challenge. Another very important challenge, and I think most schools talk about that, and it's part of the cause of Chicago's lab school, or at least Dewey's leaving the Chicago University. These are funding and resource limitations. Unless you're a very expensive school for only rich people, you will have this kind of problem. So that's, I think, if you have solutions for that, we're very open to your ideas. Another problem that we can face is the resistance to change, and even among people who want this change, whether families, students, teachers, sometimes it's very difficult because you think it's going to be in a way and it's different from what you thought. And I can give you one example that we faced with some teachers a long time ago. We took model on Montessori schools, and in Montessori schools in France, teachers are with the students from morning to evening without a break, because even lunchtime is considered as a learning time opportunity for learning. And so teachers were with the students from 8:30 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon. From the beginning, we already planned 1 hour of break, but only 1 hour, and they were with the children during the other hour. And at that point, and rightly so, I feel, some teachers said, but we need a break, and we don't want to do that, because they came from a classical traditional environment. So in a normal school, they were with the students only during school time, and they didn't want to consider lunch break as a learning opportunity or learning time. And I understand both point of view. I understand that the teachers need some rest, for sure. But what I find a little bit sad is that we found it very difficult to make them agree that these informal moments are very important to get to know the students, sometimes to teach them things in an informal way, to help the children acquire more social and emotional skills, which they don't use during the school when they are occupied. These informal times are many times opportunities for fights or disagreements or conflicts between students, and it's also our jobs as educators to deal with that. So yeah, we face this kind of resistance to change, and maybe there will be some other examples that Marlene could give. And the main difficulty we faced in the beginning was the discrepancy between words on which we agree. We want a school which emancipates children, who makes them both responsible and happy and good thinkers, and so on and so forth, and good citizens. But in the end, how do you do it in the classroom? What do you do when, for instance, a child has very hard difficulties for, to regulate their emotions, to the extent that they pinch or beat the others, or if they have challenges. I mean, children with special needs who sometimes can't control themselves. How do you do that? And when you talk to the parents, sometimes the parents completely deny the situation. So how do you deal with parents who thought you would be the dream school for their children, but they're actually making the teachers and other students' lives completely impossible? So this kind of challenge was very, very difficult in the beginning. Now we managed to have, I think, a clear presentation of the project, and we have longer discussions with the families before we enroll the students. But yeah, these are the kind of challenges. I don't know if I forgot a lot of them, or if you have solutions.
Muted. David is speaking, but he's muted.
You're muted.
Sorry, I muted because my dog was barking. No, the challenges you articulate are very common. I think they are things that we all have to face in different ways.
Sorry, I'm not far away, but I'm just
Plugging in
the computer, otherwise I will die soon.
I may add that as a private school in France, it's complicated in itself because we have a very strong public system and with a long history and really valued, which is excellent. And with having no contract with the state, we really have to justify what we do. And we also have parents who come as clients, which is not a bad thing in itself, but it's something really different comparing to being parents of students in the public school system. So I think it's also something maybe special to France comparing with other countries where the ideas about private schooling is kind of more accepted, or at least not seen as something bad, which might be the case sometimes in France. Votre micro est coupé.
Yeah. We have an issue in France is that school is free, so it's quite typical not to ask anything to the teachers when your kids go to a public school. And in private school, you describe that phenomenon that since parents pay, and they pay kind of a lot, then they expect that they can weigh on the decisions, even the pedagogical decisions they make. And I was wondering whether this was also mainly a cultural effect, because in the US, there are many private school where you pay a lot and public school where you pay less, but you still have to pay. And I've not.
Well, Marlène, can you cut your mic because we hear the word.
Yeah. So, and in the US, it seems like either in public or private schools, parents wouldn't try to weigh too much on those decisions. So maybe it's also something that is cultural, because it's not usual in France to pay for school. Then people would try to be more intrusive in the school. Parents would be more intrusive in the school system. But where it's kind of usual to pay for school, parents have a better distance. But I would be curious to see how it works in other lab schools.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Also, one specific feature in France, I think, it's that the French public system was built against families. It was to remove children from the influence of religion and the relationship between families and school in general is not very easy, and teachers often say, oh, we don't want the parents to get involved. Whereas in Dewey's idea, in my notes, I have Dewey believed that schools could only fulfill their democratic mission if teachers, students, and parents all took part in institutional decision making. But then, this is one of the tools that we built in the project, LabSchoolsEurope project, is how democratic is your school. In the first year, the parents who wanted to kick me out, they also wanted to have their words to say about the teachers we were going to recruit. So they wanted to be part of all the decisions, but of course they would not, for instance, want to pay more if there was a problem. I mean, they wanted to just interfere in some decisions, but not all of them, of course. But so I think this may be part of the French situation. It's not only a question of money, it's also a question of the school being created on kind of hostility between schools and families, I think. How is it in other countries? Do you want to tell us?
I tend to work mainly with public schools, so schools that are funded by the government, and so some of those problems you've identified don't occur there. What I do think is important, however, is that there are very strong connections with parents, and that we work very hard on trying to develop and articulate the moral purpose of a school and the narrative about the school, where what the school stands for, what the pedagogic experiences are for the students, how responsive they are to the social background of students, etc. And we try to communicate that to parents. So we try to create a strong sort of ethos surrounding the school, which parents feel very free to contribute to.
Yeah, that's the situation we also have, because we are lucky to have a nice parents community now. Were you able to say something? No, okay.
If I also may add something, I think that maybe a way to deal with that is to be really open about what we do. Of course, we are the specialists of education, but to increase the confidence between families and the school, especially a private school, we always explain that parents are welcome at any time at the school, which is really different comparing to public schools in France, especially when we have the terrorist attacks. The schools were really closed and parents had to stay at the gates and they were not allowed to get inside. And after that, we had COVID. But we are really happy to welcome parents, and that can also help them to understand the challenges the teacher have. And they'll understand because, of course, they see the situation of the classroom from the point of view of their own child. And once they've seen that there's a whole classroom and many students and many challenges, they become more aware of the work of the teacher, and I think it can really help building the confidence to say you're welcome, you can observe, and then we can discuss when you've got the big picture of the reality of the classroom. I think it's something we do, and I may add that we always propose to parents to come, and the mere fact that we propose that, they won't come. They know that they can come, and it's enough to build that confidence.
That's true. Yeah, thank you, Marlene. And one last word about scalability and sustainability. I noted also that educational experiments may work very well in small and controlled environments. And in our school, we have now about 130 students. The participative model at Dewey's lab school also depended on a high level of collaborations. They even had a kind of shared governance, and to have a shared governance in school with, I don't know, 1,000 children, meaning 2,000 parents, or over 1,000 parents, can be very difficult to replicate. And so I know that some lab schools are much bigger. Bielefeld Lab School is bigger, and Cambridge and Vienna Lab School as well. Your network of school, David, is a full network, so probably much bigger schools. So it would be really interesting to see how this issue of small environment can be overcome within larger systems without losing the spirit, or the essence of the project itself. So now, for the second part of this presentation, I'm mostly going to get closer and closer to the LabSchoolsEurope project, which I really wanted to talk about. This is not a very recent picture, so there might be more lab schools in the world. Some of them may also have closed. And moreover, we don't see Japan, and there are some lab schools or university schools in Japan as well. So the slide is not completely exhaustive, maybe. So at least I wanted to say a few words about the different type of lab schools, because each lab school is tailored to its cultural and social and educational context. In the States, some schools like UCLA are really focused on educational research and teacher training, as well as having research projects. There is a lab called Connect, I think, which is linked with UCLA, and they have all kind of fascinating different projects. But some other lab schools in the States are mostly teacher training schools with less focus on research, but they're implementing progressive pedagogy, prioritizing experiential and child-centered learning. So it's important to know that not all schools are the same. And in the new network that we're trying to start, the European network, there are a lot of university schools who are mostly focused on teacher training and not doing that much research for the moment, at least. In Japan, it seems that Japan's university has a lab school that emphasizes moral education and cooperative learning, aligned with Japan's broader educational goal of group harmony and civic responsibility. So these are the cultural dimensions that are emphasized. And I would like to have someone from Tokyo, if we can manage with time difference, either if they can send a video or wake up in the middle of the night. I don't know. So I don't know if any of you has contact in Japan. I know that I have colleagues here, maybe not with a lab school, but I'll try to find someone for 2025 to have a session about Asian lab schools. So although lab schools vary in structure, I think the commitment to innovation, to be living laboratories where we can experiment teaching methods, test curricula, observe, and be open to the outside world, and having teachers coming to learn or to get some inspiration as well, is a common feature of all the lab schools. The question is also, sorry, I had a slide coming from the book that has been published by our colleagues who are the principal investigators for the Lab School Europe project. And they had these 5 characteristics of lab school, which is complementary, I think, with the idea that there are places for teaching, training teachers and doing research. And I was wondering if your schools are doing all that, and to which extent. So curriculum development, lab schools could design and publish their own curriculum for teaching and learning. We are not doing that because following Common Core for education in France. And also our idea is not to be a school that does things that are so different from other schools that you cannot... Can you still hear me? I can see I don't have a connection anymore.
Just losing a little bit of power.
Okay, it's still okay. Okay, fine. So for instance, we're not developing new curriculum, but we're often producing resources that we're sharing for free on our website, because we have specific projects, like the project you saw before about designing a model for social and emotional learning and well-being. It's been shared on our website, and so everybody can get inspiration. It's like open source. Experimentation, we have the school has a solid background allowing teachers to carry out innovative projects. I would say not only allowing them, but encouraging them and supporting them to do it. And one project we started last year, which we didn't finish because of a lack of time, is that we were focusing on the quality of interaction between teacher and students, and it was kind of interface between educational experimentation and professional development. So we really try to support the teachers to establish the best possible quality of interaction with the students both from the emotional point of view and from the organization of the classroom and teaching, and giving constructive feedback and really supporting students' learning. About research, that's something that really interests me, to have, you know, in the end of the seminar, to have ideas about the different kind of projects that we have in different schools. We had projects either that were conducted by Marlène or myself, or that we conducted with Stephanie, even with students as co-researchers at some point. But we also collaborate with other institutions and with the National System of Education. And with Marlène, for instance, we contributed to a training project for teachers who were teaching first grade students, and they made the classes much smaller. Instead of having 24 students, they had only 12. And it's not only having less students, it's also a different way of teaching that was expected from them. So we contributed to the implementation of this training and its evaluation. And that's all over France and with public schools. And of course, there can be teacher training. And this is something we do to a much lesser extent as a small school. We sometimes have interns, people who come for a few weeks to either be trained as a teacher, or a psychologist who do their internship at the lab school. So we take our part, we try to meet all the characteristics, but for some of them, we don't have the institutional legitimacy. Also, for instance, we couldn't train public school teachers because it wouldn't be recognized. So sometimes they come for a visit on their own time and on a volunteer basis. But we at the moment have, when we train teachers from public school, it's not that they come to the lab school, it's that we go to them in a way. David, do you meet all these characteristics?
Yeah, yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. We do.
Good. Yeah. You'll tell us more about it next time.
Yeah, yeah.
So one can also wonder, okay, what do you do then if you don't put electrodes on the student's head? What do you do? And our colleagues Timo Zenke and Benedict Kortz made this classification in the book, which is available online. So I'll send you the link if you're interested. And so they had they designed, or they noted 4 principles: transdisciplinarity, collaboration, experimentation, and what they called transformativity. And what we can say is that a lot of lab schools are for early childhood. So there are a lot of studies about child development. And for instance, I think the theory of mind was discovered or was elaborated in a lab school environment, and the marshmallow theory was also developed in a lab school. You can have research about teaching methods, about professional development, about inclusion, a lot of things about inclusion, and also about how do you use digital tools to make learning better, to answer each student's needs. So these are broadly all the fields that we can find, but of course not each lab school is doing that. And another question is the method. And I like very much this slide, which I always show when I talk about lab schools, because I think it's quite nice to see that, of course, there are multiple ways of doing research, but in France, at least, experimental research, research that is done in a controlled setting, is seen as the highest, most prestigious and most valued type of research. Whereas in this continuum, in a way, it's not hierarchized. I mean, you say that? There's no hierarchy, at least. So you can have what they call faculty directed. That would be experimental research. Teachers don't have their words to say. Researchers either take children to a lab, or they come to the school and they do some tests or things like that. And on the other extreme, it's the teacher on his own who designs his research protocol, who collects data and goes as far as to publish their own papers. And I know that in Northern America, there are a few journals who are teacher research and publishing only studies made by teachers themselves. And when you go towards the middle, the faculty-led, teacher-supported is when the researchers have decided determine the whole protocol, but they can still talk to the teachers to get some help or some feedback about the results, maybe to interpret the results better. My favorite is when it's really teacher faculty collaborative team, because you start with questions that the teachers have in their classroom. It can be something about students with special needs, about how do you deal with the heterogeneity of students. How do you teach in a bilingual setting where some students are completely bilingual, some are mostly French speaking, some are mostly English speaking, and how do you solve and gradually make this discrepancy, diminish these discrepancies? And so while starting from their problems, they're more motivated. And I think it's also more motivating for a teacher to know that for a researcher to know that you're going to contribute solving actual problems in the classroom while contributing to more broadly to the knowledge in educational sciences. So that's my favorite approach, which is very disregarded in France. So it's called it's often seen as like under research. And teacher-led faculty support is also something that can be done sometimes when a teacher wants to do research but don't really know about theoretical frameworks or how to build a protocol. So you can give them some help, but they're still quite independent. I don't know if this continuum seems relevant to you, David.
Yeah, I looked at this sort of earlier, and we sort of do. I can put ticks by aspects of that, but it's not a continuum.
That's a good point.
Typically, what we do is we set up. We have a network of schools. We provide support to them. We encourage them to do research. We do seminars on research. Quite a few of our people are linked to our doctoral programs or our master's programs, and so we build it along. We build it that way, really. So it's more there's sort of the 1, 2, 3, 4th one along, teacher-led, faculty supported, I guess.
Yeah, I had never. It never occurred to me. It's true. It's not a continuum. Actually, it's five. Well, actually, what makes it a continuum is that the degree of collaboration can be different, but there are actually different methods. Yeah. So I'll stop calling it a continuum.
Yep.
Thank you for this new insight. Oh, sorry. So now about the Lab Schools Europe project. I really hope we can make a session with all the partners in a few months. Actually, Timo Zenke, who was the PI, moved from Bielefeld. He got a full professor position in Aachen in Germany. It's closer to Paris, which is nice. So hope we'll meet him. But at the moment he's very busy. I asked him if he wanted to contribute today and present the project. He said no, thank you. fully booked, and he won't have a lot of time. So hopefully we can do a session in the spring. We'll have a double session one day because we need to make 12 sessions in total, and we need to finish the classes before the 15th of June, I think. So maybe during this longer session we can have get all the partners to come and talk and give us some news about what have done since the project is over. So the project was launched in November actually, November 2019. We all met in Bielefeld. And unfortunately, after that, COVID started, which means that all the trips that were planned, we were planning to go twice to each school, had to be online. So we did the best we could, but it was quite frustrating actually. And we only could resume the trips in 2021, I think, the end of 2021. We still managed to go to all the places once. And met in Bielefeld twice on the occasion of last conference they organized. But we didn't do as much as we had expected to. And so, as you can see from this presentation, in Bielefeld, the LabSchoolsEurope is almost on the campus. It's really a collaboration that is completely institutionalized. It's also the case in Cambridge and in Vienna. But in Paris and Brno, as I said, the schools were connected with a university, but the connection was mostly for this project, or can be, of course, can go on for other projects. But it's not, for instance, my institution doesn't finance the lab school, for instance. But we can organize days, research days or events together sometimes. So the goal of the project, what you can see is what is on the website and what was on the proposal when we wrote it. And it's always very ambitious, and to document and analyze research approaches, to develop democratic practices, to facilitate professional learning for educators, to support teaching practices, to further strengthen the cooperation, and to establish a European network for lab schools. I can't say that we succeed to do everything as much as we wanted to, but also these projects are rather small projects and not very much funded. They are funded mostly for the trips, which means that all the work that had to be done with the teachers or with the researchers was not very well paid. I mean, we had a little funding for that, but we didn't have doctoral students, or in each of the schools there was only one postdoc, I think, in Bielefeld, who was involved in a coordination of the project. However, I think the most promising thing, I think, for the future is that the idea of establishing a European network for lab schools in our minds at the end of the project. And that's why a few months ago, Timo and Benedict had conducted a lot of colleagues in different countries in Scandinavia. That's how you joined the project, David, I think. More colleagues from Czech Republic or from other countries in Eastern Europe. So I think it's very promising, and it will also broaden the type of lab schools that we have, because some of these schools are also teachers training, big schools where research is maybe not that implemented yet. That's the case, for instance, of Trondheim in Norway. There's an institution that has been working for a long time in teachers training, which is very active. They organized or they hosted a conference in July. And when I talked to one of the teachers, she said, I'm not ready yet for a presentation. I'll come, I'll join you. I'll be happy to learn from the seminar, but I don't want to give a presentation myself, because we are not doing enough research yet to be really part of the project. We don't have anything to present. But hopefully this seminar will also be an opportunity for us to keep in touch. With the seminar being recorded, we'll be able also to share it online. And hopefully it will be a kind of a starting point for the seminar, the network, sorry. I wanted to share with you some of the achievement. I don't think the links are active, but you have the link of the website. Lab Schools Europe. One of the goals was for each school to share some of their what they think are democratic practices in their schools. It could be very diverse. Here you can see only 6 of them because that's the screenshot I could take, but there are many more schools. And so if you click on each of them, you have resources based on research explaining why it's important, why it's useful, and practical resources that hands-on that you can just download. They're in English. Some of them are also translated into German or French, I think, and you can use them in your class. And I'm just going to say a few words about the diagnosis. We developed it based on the Spanish project I told you about before. They had developed a theoretical framework about what is democracy in a school, taking into account the fact that actually there are so many different definitions that we just have to agree on one. I'm sorry, David, I think I hear a lot of noise that is coming, just a little squeak. Is your mic still on? I think it's just some kind of echo. Thank you. Yeah, it's gone. It's better. Thank you very much. So they had their framework was that they had 3 main dimensions. One of them was about decision making. One of them was about organization and spatial organization. One of them was about ethos, and I forget about the 4th one. And for each dimension, they developed a kind of questionnaire, which we used in our school. And for some of the topics, it was not very clear. It was a bit too vague and maybe not concrete enough. So in a way, we tested the tool and we refined it. We changed it. We added or rephrase some of the items. And so this is the diagnosis, and it really takes into account all the dimensions from the point of view of students, teachers, other staff, parents, and decision-making about pedagogy, about other projects. And so I think it's quite a nice tool. And since it's not finished, you can also download it and change it, adapt it to your own environment and context. And so in the same way for Bill of Rights, our Bielefeld colleagues decided to have an entire school council. And so they all kind of ideas for decision making and to involve the student in decision making. So you can just go and have a look, and maybe this type of practice can inspire teachers. And everything is, of course, free since the project was founded by European Community Union. So we did not only produce resource, we also worked. And we produced one book was coordinated and published by Routledge with our colleague James Biddulph, that maybe you know, David.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting because it was about how we can really make children active and listen to their voices in primary education. We contributed with a paper on Students' Council, and most of the schools of the European Lab Schools project contributed. And we had a few other papers. There was an issue made by our colleagues from Wien on doing democratic education in schools and university. And we contributed with a paper written with the students themselves. Because during the year of this project, we had some students who had questions about their gender identity or sexual orientations, and we developed a project with them, and the students were really co-researchers. They helped building the research questions, deciding about the methodology, collecting data, and I even contributed to a presentation in the School for Advanced Studies in Social Sciences on an event. And we wrote one paper with them. So you see it's the one on the right, Students as Core Researchers, Participative Action Research on the Construction of Identity During Adolescence. And at the same time, we also with Stephanie and with a student from this institution who was in gender studies, Tito Fantoni, who was a master student. We worked on this. It was a kind of meta analysis of the project, and so we tried to see how this project was also a way of fostering engagement and reflexivity, and all the social and emotional skills students need in involving the students. So there has been these publications, and one more, the most important outcome of the project that Benedict and Timo have edited. So it's about each school, and we defined together kind of framework. So all the articles have more or less the same structure, which makes it easy to get a better idea of the diversity of our schools. There's a part about the school system in our respective countries, and the history of our lab school and the type of research we're doing and the specificities, the main thing we're focusing on. So I really hope that after this session we can go on discussing, and if possible start a new Erasmus or something else project or other European project that would give us more opportunities to meet and get to know each other better and get some inspiration from each other. And so I'm open. We still have a little time for questions. If you want, you have my email here. And next time, it will be in 2 weeks, we'll have a presentation by David. I don't know, David, if you want to say a few words, it would be a teaser for to encourage people to come.
Yeah, well, thank you, Pascale, and thank you for the invitation. I've established a network of laboratory schools associated with our university, and what I would like to do in the presentation, if it's agreeable, for me to give an overview of our approach. We're sort of my background is in school improvement strategies for improving the quality of education in public schooling, and obviously that has an action research dimension to it, and that's the drive that led me to try to formulate a lab school. And so I'll talk a bit about the project, about the strategies that we use, about the research evidence that underpins it. And then I'm hoping to get 4 presentations from the schools. So one, a secondary school, a cluster of special schools who try to create learning experiences, democratic learning experiences for students with particular needs, and a primary school, and a private school as well. So I'm hoping to get that range, and they will talk for about 10 minutes about their work, and we'll try and get opportunities for questions after every presentation. So that's what I'm planning on doing. I hope that's agreeable to yourself.
That's fantastic, and it's really nice to have testimonies from schools, and I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, what we'll need to do, Pascale, is I will contact you outside of this meeting, sure, so that we can make certain that the IT works properly. All right. Yeah. But I'll get my people to talk to you about that. Yeah,
sure. And if you want to use another platform than Big Blue Button, I mean, we can talk about it outside this.
We tend to use Zoom. We find that easy to use, and it may
Me
be
too.
It may be that we issue the invitations our side, But anyway, we can pick it up after this.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Between now and then.
Is there any questions from the participants online or on site? You can ask in French if you want to, if it's easier. Okay. Well, if you don't have any questions, I don't know. Yeah, there is a chat. I didn't see if there was something in the chat. No, there's no question. Okay, so in that case, we're going to stop the online session for today, and I'll just have a few words with the persons who are on site, especially the students who want to validate the seminar and who need to be on site. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again on Zoom in 2 weeks then. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Connie. Nice to meet you, and thank you for organizing this, Pascale.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Alors maintenant, comment je ferme
Tu appuies sur l'enregistrement pour l'arrêter.
Ah. En fait, c'est toujours ça. Pause recording.
No. Voilà. Oh.